Line's good.
Never on.
Whoa.
Hard. Hardly.
Come on, Brent.
Line's good.
Got real close.
I hear high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Ooh, welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham Scott, alongside, as always, hello, Scott.
Sean, hello. I usually come to this with some nice things to say or some idea of how to start, and I thought we would talk about the game we played last night with only two players. You and I, we played a game at the Ottawa Curling Club. Why don't you tell the people how it went?
It was an interesting game. I've played with two before in doubles play, both Scotch doubles, mixed doubles. I've played with two. Don't think I've ever played with two in a four-person style game. So this year at the Ottawa Curling Club, they put a rule into place because spares are limited based on the protocols that are in place. You're allowed to play with two players. We only had two players available last night. The other team, somewhat interesting, they only had three, so only five people were on the sheet. And the rules for playing with two is one person throws the first two and the fifth and sixth stones. The other person throws what would be the second position and the fourth position. That was me because I'm in the skips role in our skip till you lose. And we put up some points, Scotty.
Did we ever, Sean? I think we got two ends of 4 points each.
One a steal.
One was a steal.
Yeah,
cruised to an easy early night.
Yeah, we played more ends than we probably would have otherwise, just because it was our first time back. The other team wanted to keep playing, and we certainly didn't object to that. Some tough-ish shots along the way. I think the biggest shot for me personally, first end, was the last shot of the first end. They were sitting one. I threw probably what was top four, maybe half in the top four out of the hand. You were able to sweep it back to the back four to tap the other one about 2 inches, and it went from them sitting one to us getting two.
Yeah, just far enough, Sean. And that was you said that at the time, it was the classic, throw this as a draw, and if the sweepers can take it, we'll take it. And I took it. I'll tell you what, my arms are feeling a little tired today. Also my legs, also my back, and my core. So I think I was sweeping properly.
That's good.
It was a good workout. Good to get back on the ice and feel it under the slider. It's been a while for us here, so happy to be back doing that. And it puts us in a good frame of mind, looking forward to the Olympic curling that's coming up.
Yeah, the Olympic curling starting in, I don't know, like 13 hours or something from when we're recording this, or maybe less, or maybe more, a little more than 13 hours. As we record this, the mixed doubles curling competition kicking off Wednesday night in Beijing, Wednesday morning here in North America. 10 teams are there, have landed. As far as we know, nobody has triggered any positive tests from the mixed doubles. Some reports of people in the four-person teams maybe have triggered some tests, but seems as of right now that the 20 players will be the 20 players for the mixed doubles. Saw a couple tweets from Rachel Homan that they made it into the facility for some practice. So everything's looking good there. Interestingly enough, it is still listed on the Olympic website as the National Aquatic Center. They haven't changed the name for the Olympics for this. The way they changed BC Place during the Vancouver Olympics to Canada Hockey Place. I thought they would do something weird like that, but no, it's still the National Aquatic Center.
Yeah, that was the old GM Place, which became Canada Hockey Place, which is now Rogers something. Yeah. So no, I think BC Place was still BC Place. The Bird's Nest is still going to be the Bird's Nest.
I believe it's called the National Stadium, though. I don't think it's called the Birds. I don't think that's the official name.
Oh, right, because that would be weird. For it to be some English name. It's our nickname for it, I guess. So and this, of course, is going to go back to being the National Aquatic Center after the Winter Games. So the venue looks good. We've seen a lot of pictures, the athletes getting there. Getting their tests done. Like you say, everything looks good for the mixed doubles. So, I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, so as I said, 10 teams are participating, so 20 players are there in Beijing getting ready to kick things off. Round robin, 9 games being played over 12 draws of mixed doubles play. The gold medal game will take place a week from tomorrow or today. I can't remember. It's about a week of curling, 7 days of actual competition here at the mixed doubles, kicking off, of course, before the opening ceremony, which is on Friday night over there in Beijing, Friday morning, of course, here in North America. So, Scott, we have tiers. We've created tiers for the 10 teams, and we want to go through and look at what would constitute a successful week for each of these 10 teams. And we're going to go based on these tiers that we have established. So let's start with the bottom tier of this event. And these are teams that you wouldn't really expect to be in contention at the end of the week. And if they can make the playoffs, it would be a great upset. So let's start with the team making their debut in curling at the Olympic Games. That is Australia. Dean Hewitt and Talia Gill will be representing Australia. They, of course, qualified at the final qualifier event late last year. John Morris, of course, the coach for that event, not so much the coach for this event. It'll be interesting when those two teams match up. They did go undefeated at that qualification event. They were fourth at the 2019 Worlds. Dean Hewitt has played in other events, but the two of them together, their best result was in 2019 at those mixed doubles world championships. Scott, during that Olympic qualifying event, great numbers, great peripheral numbers, which is going to happen when you don't lose any games. But 83% power play efficiency. They scored 15 points on 6 power plays. So that's 2.5 per. That led the field there in that last chance qualifier. So if you can pull that off over the course of the week, they're going to be in good shape. But I don't know. What do you think counts as a successful week for this team?
Probably being in the mix for playoff contention, right? You don't expect it really. We had 2 teams come out of the last chance qualifier, and we'll talk about the other one in a bit. But you would expect those teams then to be like in they're happy to be there, building on something, right? So if by about halfway through this event, they're still keeping their heads above water and sniffing the playoffs, then I think that would be a pretty good result for them. And I'm looking at their schedule. They start off with the Americans, and then have the Chinese, and then the Czechs. So they do have a chance to, get their feet under them, get a good start early. And so, if by the time we're talking about them, next on the weekend, and they're not mathematically eliminated, I think that'll be pretty good for them.
Yeah, I would sort of highlight draw 8 for them, that they finish with the Swiss and the Canadians, 2 of the top teams in the field. So if you're looking at the end of draw 8 and they're still in contention for a playoff spot, that's going to be a good week for them. Kind of curiously, the way their schedule breaks with their buys, having draws 3, 9, and 10 off. Sort of curious in how the schedule broke for them in that regard. But if you're coming out of draw 8 in a good position, or in position to still have a chance at the playoffs, I think that would be a great week for them, and that'd be considered a success. In addition to the success they've already had just from getting there, which from all accounts means a dedicated facility in Australia. They won't have to spend all their time in Canada necessarily to practice. So it's a great step forward. And if they can win a few games, that'd be a wonderful thing for the sport down under.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have to look at that draw. 5, 6, 7 is really their gauntlet. They got Sweden, then Great Britain, then Norway. How they come out of that, will dictate the rest of the event for them.
All right, let's move on, Scott, to the hosts, Chinese squad. They will be represented by Ling Ji and Fan Suyuan. They are a new team, have not played together. So the way China decided on its mixed doubles rep is they had a trials in December of 2021, so later in the month, where they had individuals come and basically just tried out different partnerships and played games and decided who they thought would be best. It's kind of a curious strategy that late in the cycle, but that's according to the information on the official Olympics website. That's how they decided to make that decision. So they have no international experience together, but Su Yuan was part of China's B team that finished second in an event in Brantford in 2020, playing the likes of Kelsey Rock in that event, sort of a mid-tier event. And Ling Ji has played in the mixed doubles world championship before, finished 9th in 2021 with Ying Yang, and he was 12th in the field of men's players at 74.5%. So not the greatest of track records, but he has some experience at least, whereas Ling Ji will be coming into this with no experience. So Scott, what do you expect from this side?
Yeah, that's real tough, Sean, to come into an event of this caliber with no experience playing together, right? That's crazy. Like we've talked about a lot of associations, they'll put their teams together, but they don't do it a month before the event and then say, you don't need to play. Just go out there and throw. So that's going to be really tough. The communication style between them. I mean, they've had time to train together, but once you get out there on the ice with the time clocks ticking and all that stuff, it's going to be a little different. All that said, I wouldn't expect them to be challenging for the playoffs in this event. Can they win 2 games? Maybe 3?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think if they go over 2.5, so if they get to 3, I think that's a good week for them. You mentioned the communication style in the quote on the Olympic website from Ling. It says, he says essentially, like, when I'm comfortable with somebody, I'm good. I'm outgoing. Like, our communication is really good. And when I'm playing with a new player, it's harder for me. And I thought, well, that's not a great sign that your player is saying this going into an event with a new player. So it is a curious choice. And because of that, it doesn't lead you with a lot of confidence for this team going into it. And as I said, with that 12th or 9th place finish in the 2021 Worlds, and he was 12th on the men's side in terms of throwing, does make you wonder how they will be able to hang with some of these top teams.
Yeah, considering all of the great shot makers we've got, that might be tough.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the final team that we have in our bottom tier. That is the Czech Republic, represented by Thomas Paul and Zuzana Pavlova. They, Scott, made it in with a great performance at the 2021 World Championships. They were quite good overall, but I noticed a couple interesting statistical anomalies for Zuzana. That in 2021, she was 70% throwing out turns, 77% throwing in turns, and 38% on out turn runs. And that it could be just a statistical anomaly. And certainly on the out turn runs, she only threw 8 of them. So that's a really small sample size. But a 7% difference out turn to in turn, that could be a notice of a tendency, or it could just be a weird week. But that's something I noticed, because overall during the week, they did play quite well. They got 8 out of 10 last rock draws that they won. So they had the hammer in the first end, 8 out of their 10 games, 83% power play efficiency. And that included a blank that they had. So it's not even just getting so I'm probably a defensive use of the power play there. But so those peripherals are good. It's just that one statistical anomaly that as I was going through the numbers today, I just found that for Zuzana, and I thought, ooh, maybe that could be a concern. Could some teams try to capitalize on that potential difference between her in and out turn?
Yeah, that's definitely something to look for. This team, they beat the U.S. to get in to that last Olympic qualifying spot from the World Championship field. So, they weren't solidly in the playoffs. They still had to win that one game. And when they did, Sean, we all remember the huge celebration that they had, so happy to be there. If they put together these strong numbers that they have in the past, that they've got a chance to win a few games. I think it would be unrealistic to expect them to be over 500 in a field like this. But, if they can get to 4, they can get to 4 and 5. You got to feel pretty good about yourself.
I think so.
That'll probably mean that there's some surprises among teams that we're going to talk about later, falling down a bit. But that would be a pretty solid week for them. I think even if they get three wins under their belts, they'd be pretty happy.
I agree. I think 3 for them would be a good number. And so I would put the over-under at maybe 3.5 and probably give better odds for the over if I was setting a line on this. But
Right.
yeah, it's great for them. It's great to have, again, another country represented in the Olympic Games. That is always exciting. So whenever they win a game, I don't think they're going to get skunked here. I don't think anyone gets skunked. That's maybe a bold prediction that nobody gets skunked, but it'll be great. It'll just be a fun thing. There'll certainly be some big celebration. Maybe not as big as when they qualify, but good for them, and it'll be fun to see them there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's move on then to the middle tier of teams. Scott, let's start with a team that maybe should be higher than where I have them in the middle tier. Maybe not a top tier team, but higher within the middle tier. That's Italy, represented by Stefania Constantini and Amos Mussana. Of course, Amos will be participating in the 4-person events with Team Italy. Scott, in the 2021 World Championship, Stefania was 7th amongst the women, throwing 73.9%. Amos was 4th amongst the men at 81.4%. Interestingly enough, though, for Stefania, 58% on her hits in the 2021 World Championship. That number is going to have to increase. Now, it's curious, though, when you look at the percentages between men and women in mixed doubles, assuming that the woman is throwing 1st and 5th, which sort of has become the orthodoxy at this point, the woman is therefore throwing what is often the easiest shot of the end and the hardest shot of the end. And it's a very strange dynamic of that. So if you're looking at 58% for Stefania on her hits, those are all going to be the last shot of the end for the team. And that's not a great number there, right? You want that to be higher, right? You can maybe stand draws to be potentially a little lower, because if you miss those first ones, it's not necessarily as important, even though it is important. But hits, when it's all those hits are coming at the end of the end, you certainly you're not going to feel great with that percentage.
No, for sure. And yeah, like they're not throwing hits on the first rock, so yeah, those are sort of zeros or fours, come that last rock of the end. So that's a tough thing to overcome. That said, Amos in the middle, he's got great big weight ability, also got a good touch. They were 7-2 in their pool, right, at the World, so they've got the ability to beat anybody. I think the only teams they lost to were Canada and Scotland there. So I think this is maybe a bit too low to talk about them. Maybe we're going alphabetically within these tiers. I don't know, but this is one of these teams that I would say is one of my dark horses for the playoffs. If they get off to a good start, get rolling a bit, get feeling it. If Constantini's got her draw weight down and doesn't have to play too many big weight hit hero shots, if Amos can keep it relatively open for her shots, I think good things could happen.
Yep. I think, though, Scott, there's a couple peripherals that make me concerned from that 2021 World Championship. They were only 27% in the hammer efficiency. That's not a very good number when you look at the field. The hammer efficiency is much higher in mixed doubles than it is in the traditional 4-person game, and only 14% power play efficiency. That was the worst in the field, and it was much, much worse than any other team that was in contention for the playoffs. I believe Russia was the next worst at 17%, but they weren't really in contention. So of the teams that were playoff contenders, everyone was in the worst of those, other than Italy, was in the 40-50%. And you had some teams, as we talked about, with the Czechs in the 80s. So that's a number that's not going to be sustainable over the course of the week. So those peripherals make you a little concerned, and they're going to have to improve upon those.
Yeah. That's for sure.
All right, let's move on then, Scott, to another team here in the mid-tier from the United States of America. Chris Plies and Vicky Persinger will be representing the United States. They are there. They are through quarantine. Chris has had some very entertaining tweets. Apparently he got to the apartment that the men's team, that team Schuster, is sharing together, sort of a 4 or 5 bedroom apartment. They're all going to be there. He had it all to himself and was making the most of that based off of his social media post, having a good time in there. Now, Scott, at the last chance qualifier late last year, they had the last rock in 6 of their 7 games. That is a good sign for them. And they only gave up scores in 19 ends. So in 7 games played, the other team only scored in 19 ends. That's less than 3 a game. That's pretty darn good in a version of the sport where points are being scored 99% of the time. So you're
Yeah,
limiting the amount of scores that you're giving up. Only 9 multiple scores against in the entire event. A very impressive performance by the Americans.
yeah, very impressive, and they of course won the American mixed doubles trials to be the representative that would go to that last chance qualifier event and definitely prove their medal there. This team is not going to be happy, I don't think, unless they make the playoffs at this Olympic event. A medal is obviously what every athlete is going for, but the way that they played at that last chance qualifier, yes, the level of competition is a little bit more here, but they're both great players, and I don't think they'll be happy unless they're in the playoffs. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think playoffs here for the Americans is what they will constitute as a successful week. I don't think missing the playoffs is good. We should note too that it is the 4-team playoff. There was a report. It was an erroneous report from the World Curling Federation. So this isn't me blaming a reporter. This is the WCF and the Olympics put this out in error that it would be a 5-team playoff with the first place team getting a bye somehow. It never made sense in sort of how it was presented. That story has since been corrected by the World Curling Federation. So it is the top 4 teams that are going into the playoffs. So yeah, if they finish 5th, I think that'll be a considered disappointment for them, and they're going to be looking at the playoffs. And obviously, once you're in the playoffs, 75% of the teams there get a medal. Even a 4th place finish, I think, for them would be certainly disappointing in the moment, but something that you could look back on and say, hey, that's another step forward for American curling.
Of course, especially given that they were unable to qualify out of the mixed doubles worlds in 2021. So to go from being like on the outside, having to play in a last chance qualifier, to being a team that's in a position to make a run at the playoffs, I think that's a pretty good step for U.S. curling, and that's what they'll be aiming for.
Now, of course, it wasn't Chris Blythe and Vicky Persinger at the World Championship.
No. But for an association.
Yeah, for the association, it is a good step forward. All right, Scott, let's move into the final team that I have in the mid-tier. Certainly a medal contender out of Norway, Magnus Nedgrotten and Kristen Skaslian representing the Norwegians. Some familiar names there. At the 2021 World Championship, Kristen was 4th in the field at 78.5% amongst the women. Magnus 2nd amongst the men at 85.5%. Great peripheral numbers and scoring numbers, Scott. They outscored their opponents by 38 points at the World Championship. 62% hammer efficiency, 89% efficiency on the power play. Those are some phenomenal peripheral numbers, and if you're going to outscore people over the course of 12 games by 38 points, you're going to win a lot.
That is analytics right there. So Sean, this team, I don't know what business it has being in the mid-tier, but you made the tiers and that's how it goes. Definitely a threat for a medal. They're mixed double specialists. Yes, they do play in the 4-person game as well, but I think this is their bread and butter. From those numbers you said, really, really, really solid. And I'm getting choked up talking about it. No, I just got something.
You're getting very emotional about the Norwegian team here, Scott. Like, man, oh man, you're all in your feelings about Christian and Magnus here.
I'm like Drake. I'm so in my feelings, right?
I didn't realize you had such a strong connection to
them. No, this team, they've definitely got what it takes to win a medal at the Olympics, because I think they've done it before. So yeah, for them to not, like, if they don't win a medal, they'll be disappointed, right? They've been medalists before. They've been on the podium. They know what it's like. That's what they're going to want. And I don't really see any reason they can't. I'm looking at their draw. They've got like Great Britain last, Sweden second last. They're sort of backloaded with a bunch of tough games. So they're going to have probably be in the best form for those more difficult games. So they definitely are threatening for the playoffs.
Yeah, and as you said, they are the bronze medalist from 2018 in Pyeongchang in Korea there. They did make the playoffs. They were 4-3. Actually, a lot of people were 4-3. Russia,
Mm-hmm.
Norway, China, all tied at 4-3. They get in the 4 spot, lose to Caitlin Lawes, John Morris in the semifinal, and then beat the Olympic athletes from Russia, as they were called at the time. Nonsense.
Yes.
In the bronze medal game. So they do have that bronze medal coming in. I do think that, yeah, a successful week for them is a medal, but I don't know if they stack up with the other 4. That's sort of the question. That's why I have in the mid tier. I don't know if you can have a tier that has half the teams in it. That felt like too big of a tier for me.
Fair.
So if I was going to drop a team from those 4, I think this would be the 5th of those 5 teams. I don't mean that as disrespectful, because you got some of the best players in the world in the top 5, or in the top 4, excuse me. So yeah, there's certainly a threat, no question, to not only win a medal, but to win the gold medal. But I think for them, or the way I would look at the week for them, is in this field. I think this is a deeper, tougher field than it was in 2018. That winning a medal for them would be a success, independent of what color that is.
Yeah, that's for sure true, that it would be a medal that they're looking for success, and nothing short of that.
Yeah. All right, let's move into the top tier then, Scott. A success for each of these teams, if you were to give them truth serum before the event started, to me, is the gold medal, and that all 4 of these teams are shooting for gold. And while in the moment they'll be, if they win another color, they'll be like, yeah, that's great, we won a medal. But like going into it, they're thinking we're gold medal. We're going for the gold medal. We're not here to make the playoffs. We're not here for another color. We are here to win the gold medal. So let's start with the Swiss side, represented by Martin Rios and Jenny Perret, longtime Swiss representatives in mixed doubles, past world champions, and the 2018 silver medalists. That game against John Morris and not Rachel Holm, excuse me, against John Morris and Caitlin Lawes, got a little out of hand in 2018, a 10-3 final. But they are back, and they've had a pretty good quad. If you look back at the 2021 World Championship, not great on the peripheral numbers, 47% hammer efficiency, 44% on the power play. Martin was 6th in the field on the men's side at 80%. Jenny was pretty good at 3rd on the women's side, 78%. But if you look at some of the, again, some of deeper into those numbers, again, for Jenny, 71% on hits. So similar to what we saw with Stefania, not great when you're throwing a little lower on those shots that are definitely coming at the end of the ends. And for Martin, he was 73% outturned draws. So a little curious anomaly for him during the week back in the spring. But Scott, I don't know, like, they're really good. They have experience. They've seen everything. They've been in a gold medal game, world champions. Like this, the only reason I would think they're still playing is, one, I'm sure they love it and enjoy it and blah, blah, blah. But they're here for a gold medal. Like, they're playing to win the Olympic gold medal. That's what's left for them in their career.
Yeah, and it seems to me like, I guess for most mixed doubles teams, when you stumble is when the last rock thrower is having a tough game.
Sure.
Right. And so given how consistent all of these teams are going to be, it's those little stumbles that we're going to be looking for, that, just like a little bit of a roll a half inch too much on a hit with your last, or a draw that goes slightly through or just comes up a bit short. That's going to be the difference between these 4 teams. And Jenny at the mixed doubles worlds last year, they played in the 2 versus 3 crossover game against Canada, and she shot 67%. So when it comes to the big game, if she's going to have to perform, and that's going to be the key. I think Martin is going to have to set her up for success. He wasn't that strong in that game either, but if they come up against a team that's shooting well, they're going to have to match it. There's not a lot of room for error.
No. And the other thing for this team, particularly with Martin, is, can he keep his composure? He's a little, lit up out there sometimes, right? And can he keep it so that even when he's upset and frustrated, it's channeled in the proper way, and it's channeled in a way that leads to success? And they've played together for so long that I'm sure Jenny knows how to manage him when he's upset like that. But that is something that we have seen before, where his frustrations at times can impact his shots.
absolutely. But like you say, they've been at the top of the podium before in the Worlds. So
Mhm.
that's what they'll be striving for this week.
Yes. All right. So let's move on then to the next team that I have in this tier is the Canadians. John Morris, the 2018 gold medalist, of course. Rachel Homan making her second Olympic appearance. Scott, the question here is, what is the story of this team? Is it a redemption story for Rachel Homan potential after 2018? Is it John Morris going for his third gold medal? There's a great quote from him. He was asked between the 2010 gold medal and the 2018 gold medal, like, what's the difference? And he says, well, the beer tastes the same. So, like, there's no difference. Which I thought was a very good quote from John Morris. Is there a sweeping deficiency potentially on this team compared to the rest of the field? John Morris, older than he was. Rachel Homan is not one who sweeps on her 4-person team. She's in phenomenal physical condition and is a good sweeper, but doesn't do it all the time. So I just don't know what the story of this team is going into the week. What do you think?
Yeah, that's it's the big unknown, right? They didn't play to get there. They've played together quite a bit. They're friends. I think their team dynamic will be fine. It's just a question of, for Rachel, having not succeeded at the Olympics in 2018, is that something that's going to linger in her head, or is it something that she can say, you know what, I had that experience, I know what it's like now, I'm better prepared, I'm going to be able to go out there and make that big shot. Even on the 4-person team, we've seen they've lost the last 3 Scotties finals. 3,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
That's not something that was happening, 8 years ago for that team. They weren't missing those shots. So that's what it comes down to in my mind. Like John Morris, he's done it before. Yes, he's older. I believe he's the oldest Canadian athlete that's going to be there at these Olympics.
That would make sense.
At 43. So
you don't have the horse riders there to bump up the age of athletes at the Winter Games.
That's true. Yeah. So that's the only question, right? Like they've obviously got all the skill to do it. It's just about, is the moment too big? I would say probably not. But I would have said that before the 2018 Olympics for Team Homan as well. So
yeah, the thing though for Rachel Homan that has come up before, like the first time she went to the Scotties wasn't good, came back and won it. First time they went to the World wasn't good, came back and they won it, and didn't lose a game. So is this the case here too? First time at the Olympics didn't go so great. Now she comes back. Now, granted, it's not the same because it's not the 4-person team, but she comes back now. She gets it. She understands like this is what goes into it, and then she's just going to go and get that "fu Rachel Homan" mode, which is scary. Like when she gets that look in her eye, really the only thing that could possibly throw them off is John Morris maybe talking too much. If she gets that look in her eye of like, I'm just going to make it, get out of my way, which is palpable when you see it. Like you know when she's in that mode, and it's fun when it happens.
And it's great. She's in such a zone. I don't even think John talking could take her out of it. That would be great to see for that team. And yeah, they're going in expecting to win gold. I think that they'd both be happy winning any medal, but they're gonna want that gold.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of people at Curling Canada in the head offices there who are also rooting very hard for a good performance from the Canadians for a variety of reasons. Not that they're not always rooting for good performances from the Canadians, but
absolutely.
Whoever is in charge of that social media account is really number one fan right now. Let's move on to Sweden, Scott. This is a fun team, I think. Oscar Eriksson alongside Almeida Deval. They, of course, did compete in the 2021 World Championship where they dominated. They didn't win, but they dominated. Almeida was the number 1 ranked woman by a lot. She was through 87.6%, which is an unheard of number.
It's insane in mixed doubles.
Yeah. So she was first by a lot, by 7 percentage points over Jennifer Dodds, who we'll talk about. It's like it's just the gap there is incredible. Oscar Eriksson was the number 1 ranked male thrower. He threw 87% as well. They were plus 43 on the week, which of course was first. They didn't finish first in power play efficiency, only 71% there, 63% hammer efficiency. But Scott, if they can throw up those type of numbers, it's not a question of if they'll win a medal. It's a question of will they win the gold?
Yeah, absolutely. They got off to such a great start that event. They ran the field, lost the semifinal by 1 point, and then we're like, oh, and then we'll just beat Canada for the bronze like by 3 points. It wasn't even close, really. So yeah, this team. This is the team that I think if I was a betting man, I would bet on. And now I haven't listened to the Professor of Peel talking about betting lines for this, but I'm on Sports Interaction right now.
Yeah.
And they are at 9-1 to win the gold medal. They're fourth in the field, which I think is great value. So snag some great value there. One thing to note with Oscar Eriksson, I've seen some times at Continental Cups where he has gotten under the skin of some other players, notably Rachel Homan, telling him to F off or something.
I think she said, "You're being a dick." I believe was the exact
Yes.
quote.
That's the quote. Yes.
The 2019
So,
Continental Cup, 2019 or 2020.
Maybe he gets in and ruffles some feathers, throws some other people off their game. Who knows? So that might be a plus on their column. So yeah, I think if they're not in the playoffs, this is a huge upset.
Yeah, they're really good. They're a really good team. The concern that I think people had going into the World Championship last year, that Almeida Deval we didn't really know much about her, not a lot of experience on the international level, which is hard to get experience on the international level out of Sweden when you have two top teams that kind of take up all the oxygen there. But she obviously performed exceptionally well. And if she can carry that into the Olympics, that would be very good for this team. Question, of course, first Olympics, like how does that play out for her? Oscar's been there, of course, multiple times. Does that experience help out? And we'll have to see, but very strong team for sure. Final team in the field, Scott, I think it's the favorites from Scotland, or I guess I should say Great Britain, because we are now at the Olympic Games. Jennifer Dodds and Bruce Mowat. They, of course, are the defending world champions. During that event, Jennifer was second in the field, as I said, at 80%. Bruce, 84.9% for third in the field. The power play percentage, not great, down at 44%, only 1.7 points per power play used. Again, you can use it defensively at times, but you'd like to see that number a little bit higher. But where they really shone in this field, Scott, they stole 17 ends, only gave up 4 steals over the course of the week. They got 25 multiple scores and only gave up 14 multiple scores. That is efficient curling and great scoreboard management.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you see a lot of steals in mixed doubles, it's usually the middle 3 rocks that are being set up really, really well. Not as a slight to Jennifer Dodds or anything. She did play great in that event, but what you see is that, if she's throwing guards, that's good, right? It's like in the 4-person game, if the skip is guarding, you feel pretty good. At least I do when I'm skipping anyway. So
it is a good feeling.
Having Bruce Mowat, one of the best, maybe the best curler in the world right now, throwing those 3 rocks in the middle really gives your team a huge advantage. Jennifer Dodds, when she plays in the 4-person game, she can tend to have like a few mental mistakes, like missing peels or stuff like that. She's a lot better when she's her shots are maybe a little more complicated, I guess. Like it's the peels that I've seen. This is all anecdotal too, so take it for what it's worth. But that's what I've noticed about her. And so having Bruce there to be able to set up the shots to make them easier at the end, I think that's the key to this team's success, right? If Bruce is struggling, it's going to be a struggle for Jennifer to make those more difficult shots at the end.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Mowat is arguably the best thrower in the world right now. And if he maintains that through this, then they'll probably win. And it'll put Jennifer in position to make shots, it'll make her shots easier. And,
Yeah.
and just in terms of the percentages of it, right? Like when one player is throwing 3 versus 2, I mean, that's a lot more percentage of the shots. So if that person is really carrying the play, it makes it so much easier for the last rock thrower, which is why we see those percentages for the women lower, because they're often asked to throw much harder shots.
Yeah, I mean, they're usually 0s or 4s, right? There's not a lot of.
There's not a lot in between on those last ones.
Well, I got a little in between, right? So,
yeah,
but like her shooting is going to be what it is. I'm not worried about like variations in her performance. Really, I think she's a great thrower. It's just that having such an excellent player set you up, makes your job that much easier, and you're a lot more comfortable, right? Having such a great setup. So I agree, though. This team is probably the favorite to win, Sean. They've been in Sterling, practicing for this event for a long time, and they should be dialed in. We talked in one of our other episodes about, is Great Britain going to be able to do, the triple gold? So you got to wonder if Bruce Mount is thinking a bit about the 4-person game before the end of the mixed doubles. Who knows? So that might come into it, but this team, they're such professionals that they should be the favorites going in.
Yeah, my concern would be the opposite, is like late in the week on the men's. If there's a deep run here, they win a medal here, that would be my concern. Right. Just the fatigue, as not so much on the front end being distracted. You mentioned the variation in performance. One real oddity that I noticed in going through the numbers from that 2021 World Championship, on the outturn, both of them struggled relative to their overall percentage. So Jennifer Dodds threw 76% on her outturns, 85% on her interns. Bruce Mount 80% outturn, 88% intern. So kind of curious that that split was there. So I looked up, I was curious. So I went to the 2021 World Championship in the 4-person, and Bruce was 85-86 outturn to intern, and Jennifer Dodds was actually better on her outturns in that event, 81-76. So it looks like it was just an anomaly for that week. But kind of curious. It really stood out when I was going through the numbers earlier today. Like, they're both 8 or 9 points worse in the outturn. Curious.
Weird. Yeah. I wonder if anybody will test that theory and sort of force them to the outturn side. We'll see in that first power play.
Yeah, at the very least, on the power play, what side do you choose to go to if you're the other team?
Yeah.
So, all right, Scott. As you said, 4 teams will be making the playoffs. But Scott, let's just do medalists here. Give me your podium, and how does it finish?
So we're picking.
Pick the podium.
Okay.
Pick the podium.
Okay. Well, I mean, I just raved about Sweden and how I think they're going to win. So I'll go Sweden for the gold, Great Britain for the silver, and Canada for the bronze. I'll be pretty chalky.
That is pretty chalky, I think. So I'm going to go with Canada to win the gold. That trend of Rachel Homan winning the second time through, I think scares me to pick anybody else. I'm going to pick them over Sweden. And when they shake hands at the end of the game, Rachel Homan looks dead in Oscar Ericsson's eyes and says, "You're still a dick." And then I'll go with Bruce Mount to win. Bruce Mount and Jennifer Dodds to win the bronze medal for Great
Sean.
Britain.
Oh, I apologize for my chalky picks. As he picks the same 3 teams in a different order.
Yeah, that's right.
Why don't you give me one? Who's your dark horse,
Swiss,
Sean?
then. Fine. The dark horse is Italy. I think dark horse is Italy.
Yeah, for me, the dark horse is Italy for sure. I might even put a few shekels on them. They have the longest odds. They're at 36-1, the same as the Czechs.
That's shocking.
Now, this all has to be driven by
money.
Who are people going to bet on, right?
Yeah.
Probably people that are going to this site are going to bet on Canada because they're Canadian and they want Canada to win. So, but 36-1, I mean, that's worth $10, right?
Sure. Go for it.
What the heck?
We are not sponsored by a gambling organization. But if you want a deeper rundown on the odds, that are out there. Ryan and Jonathan at Rocks Across the Pond did do a breakdown of the odds. I read it was a written piece that I read, and a dark horse contender that they went through and did. So you can certainly check that out over on their social media, link to it for a deeper sense of what the odds are for this if you want to lay down a couple of dollars on the mixed doubles in the Olympics. But again, we are not a sponsored, a gambling sponsored show. Scott just is going to gamble.
I think I have money in my account from that. I got $30 in my account from that debacle that happened with the Olympic soccer.
Right.
Where I bet on both teams, and then they technically tied.
And it could be an account with anyone. It could be an account with CoolBet. It could be an account with Bet99. It could be anyone who this account is with,
Yeah, I didn't say which account it was with.
If anybody wants to reach out, whichever company it is, it's great. And the other ones stink. So there you have that.
There you go.
So that's it for this week's show. Thanks everybody for listening. If you have not yet, please do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You likes, ratings, comments, all that good stuff. Helps other people find us, keeps the show growing. And do head on over to GameOfStonesPod.com. All of our past episodes are there, plus a link to the merch. Of course, all the merch proceeds are going to the Sandra Schmirler Foundation and Food Banks Canada. The Sandra Schmirler Foundation did have their annual telethon on Sunday. It was Sandra Schmirler Day at the Scotties Tournament of Hearts. They set a goal of $750,000 for the day, and they surpassed that goal. A big rush late in the evening, I felt, because after the afternoon draw, they were at about $400,000 in that range. And I thought, they might not get there. And they did. Over, I think, $770,000. Now, I shouldn't be like, oh, wow, it's kind of surprising. It was late in the day, because that's when I did mine, was late in the day. So yes, I was with a lot of folks on that front, but very exciting that they met their goal. And of course, we always say, if you don't want any of the merch, that's fine. You can donate to any of these places. Or I also was one of the many people who reached out and donated to the Shepherds of Good Hope here in Ottawa this week, and the Ottawa Food Bank, because I live here. So there's that as well. So, reach out, be part of your communities, love each other, build strong bonds. We support that here.
Absolutely.
You can also follow us on social media at Game of Stones Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to let us know what you want to hear on the show, Game of Stones Podcast at gmail.com. So, Scott, Olympics are here. Even if the opening ceremony is a few days away, this is what we lift all those weights for.
It's been a long 4 years. We've been doing our best, getting ready, getting prepped, and it's here. It's right around the corner. Can't wait.
Yeah. So enjoy the games, everybody. We'll be here with you along the way. Check out the Facebook page, facebook.com/Game of Stones Podcast. We're going to go live at some point during the Olympics. We'll give some advance notice of what that is, when that'll take place. And of course, we got Scotty's coverage, Briar coverage, the 4-person stuff. We got previews and stuff planned for all that. So a lot going on in the world of curling, and we'll be here with you. And we hope you will join us for the journey. So until the next time we chat, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.